Hello, everyone. This is Kelly Berger, and this is the Kelly Berger Comedy Podcast. And today is episode number 8, which is going to be pretty great because our guest today is Austin comic Alexa Irizarry.
I am happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. And this is like a true honor because you were like the first Austin-based comic on this podcast.
Oh, am I? Is it a lot of Minnesota comics?
Yep, I originally started this podcast as a way to sort of like combat like Minnesota homesickness.
Mm. Yeah, well, I'm originally from Ohio, which is kind of like Minnesota with more heroin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of like if I worked a show once in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and it was a air show, and I think a lot of people came down from Minnesota. I've never personally been there, but I would want to go if I ever get into cannibalism, either recreationally or medicinally. I looked up on Google, the first thing, like if you look up like cannibalism, like the first thing, if you Google it, it says there's actually no health downsides to it.
Really?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I would prefer it because then if I like talk to a guy and I say I want to date a rich guy, he's not gonna call me shallow. He's just gonna know I care about my fiber.
Yeah, he's got that thick wallet and bone marrow.
I guess, like I don't know, like cannibalism turns people into assholes or bones, depending on what part you don't eat.
Think there's a lot of good reasons to visit Minnesota. Haven't heard of not being one of them.
Well, I feel like I don't know why. Like I think there was a study done. The Midwest has like the most serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't surprise me.
And it's like it's just cold, it's depressing, it's always gray. Like people in Colorado will say it's like cold, but it's like, yeah, but they have the sun. Like in the Midwest, I feel like we don't really get sunshine
Yeah,
ever.
yeah. Like if you're stuck with a victim, what are they gonna do? Run away?
Yeah, like yeah, basically for real. And it's like also like I don't know, it's just like I feel like not seeing the sun ever like has to mess with you mentally. Like Kelly, me and you would be considered tan in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are considered like beach body ready in the Midwest. But yeah, I like living in Austin, it was different like coming here, and I don't know if you've experienced this like coming from Austin to the Midwest, but like did you just like hate yourself when you first moved here? Because I did, because people in the Midwest are not attractive. Like I'd go to the mall and I would just be like, I don't think I should live here until I develop an eating disorder.
Yeah, I've heard people have the same opinion like when they go out to LA, like where there's like major industry for looks.
Yeah, because I'm just like I was like baffled by it, because even at like the gas station in like Cedar Park, I'm just like, how is everyone gorgeous? This is a 7-Eleven and it's 3 a.m.
All right. Well, did you have a good time last night at Vulcan?
I did. It was one of my favorite shows that I think I've ever done. I'm glad I got to do Vulcan, and thankful for the experience. I really don't go out on Sixth Street that much on the weekends, so that was a different experience for me.
Yeah, I'm
Seeing,
surprised how packed it was. Like how busy Sixth Street was last night, even at midnight when the show started.
yeah, yeah, like there's a lot of people. Like I don't know if there was another event going on or something that everyone was just out there, living their best life. But I realized I don't understand fashion
Yeah,
these
were
days,
you?
because I saw the people and I was like, you are all dressed like the cast of Euphoria after 5 trips to a McDonald's.
Were you outside last night barking for the show?
Yeah, yeah, I got there early to bark, so I got to see a lot of the creatures of Sixth Street.
Yep, I was outside last night barking too, and there was like so many lines for like dance clubs and venues.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about Austin. They like people go out and dance and do things. Not with me typically, but people will take other people to do things.
I'm still waking up from last night from doing that super late show.
Yeah. Like I went for a walk this morning. That helped me a lot because again, I'm trying to like, be mindful of everything, food wise.
Hmm. How did you feel your set went last night at Vulcan?
I was surprised. They pulled back from the sexual assault jokes a little bit, I noticed. And like I saw this one lady like cross her arms and stuff, and I was just like, I was the one who got assaulted. If I want to laugh about it, that's my prerogative. You should just be happy this didn't happen to you 4 times. Like what I'm saying? And it's like the same thing, like true. Like I remember because I get this reaction a lot. Like, sometimes when I mention I'm trans in my sets, I'll see people like cross their arms.
Hmm. Like when
You
they
know,
first figured out.
yeah, like they'll cross their arms and kind of look down. And I just kind of get frustrated about that a little bit because trans people have the reputation of being like overly sensitive.
Hmm.
But like, do you know how racist I would look if a Mexican comic came on stage and the minute I saw he was a Mexican, I crossed my arms and put my head down? Like, no, I would never do that.
Hmm.
I would just go to the bathroom and call ICE. Like, but like, and it's true. Like, I'm trying to write more bits about it, but like the intersectionality of it, because a lot of times, like especially very liberal comedians will come up to me and they'll say things. They'll kind of like make a comment like, "Oh, it must suck to like do very conservative rooms sometimes," and I'm like, it actually doesn't. Like, as a trans person in comedy, I have faced like I've had like more like kind of experiences where you could read it as transphobic
Hmm.
at like, they weren't the conservative like Republican rooms that I've done, like
Yeah.
I've had like a host like just flat out bring me up, like calling me the wrong name, misgendering me in it. Like I was at this show in Columbus and this comedian, they brought me up and they were like, this is Azalea. He is a great comedian. He's one of my favorite guys in comedy.
Oh.
Like the host was drunk and
Oh.
stuff. I was like so upset because then it's like it's weird. And it's not like I'm offended by it.
Hmm.
But then also, if I did not want to open with the trans stuff in my set, I kind of am forced to at that point because it
Hmm.
would be more awkward if I didn't talk to it. And I feel like that kind of ties my hands at what material I can do at the beginning of it. Like I could dig myself out of it, but I'm just like, it's almost the equivalent of like if I was bringing a comedian up and I used one of their jokes to bring them up. It's like kind of
Hmm.
make them in a weird place at that point. But
Yeah. So like giving they sort of says like spoiler alert.
yeah, it's like spoiler alert. It's like then it becomes a Romeo and Juliet set.
Hmm.
The couple dies, but you have to figure out what made them decide to chop their dick off.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a good show. Did you have a good experience on that show?
Yep, I had a good time. The last joke sort of fell flat, but I sort of like worked my way around it, which is sort of like I think I talk a lot about these two shows at Minneapolis called Grumpies and Willies, which are super tough rooms. They're sort of like a light sand jack of the area.
Yeah. Yeah, we had I'm trying to think of the toughest room. In Ohio, it's like the Akron rooms sometimes are a little bit tougher because those are the rooms where it's like everyone's drinking, like they're clearly not there for comedy, and they are personally offended that there is comedy going on.
Hmm. Yeah, I brought
Yeah.
Darren remembers going to Willie's and most of the people just being interested in the bar than the comedy and
Yeah, there've been more than a few times when I've been the only one laughing at Willie's because all the other comedians have heard each other's stuff over and over again.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, whenever anyone's on stage, their eyes are just on me, and that feels weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. And that can be kind of a difficult experience, especially at certain mics where it's like mostly other comedians,
Hmm.
but here's the thing. If you just get a sex change, then your material is going to be completely new.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I
It's
guess.
real. These male comedians, it's like just put on a wig. Anyone can be trans according to the media these days. So like,
Hmm.
but yeah, I kind of like those tough rooms. Like I got my start at it was called I forget, it was this bar in Mansfield, Ohio. And if you know anything about Mansfield, Ohio, it's basically like one of those cities that during like the recession in like 2008, it died and it just never came back after that. It's like very run down. It was like this biker bar, and the dartboard was right in front of the stage. So as you were going up, people were just playing darts in front of you.
Oh, did you go into the biker bar when you were trans?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually hosted I got asked to host like an anti Mike DeWine thing over lockdown protests on New Year's there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for some reason I don't know what it is, like the biker bars like me for some reason.
Hmm.
I just don't get it because I never thought that would be like the demographic that like lives for my stuff the most, but they do for some reason.
Well, it's sort of like an underground environment, and being gay or trans used to be sort of seen as like an underground thing, and also everyone's just hanging out, just being themselves.
Yeah, and also like at biker bars, like a lot of bikers treat trans people like a cactus. We're a way to, we're a way to break a dry spell. It's
Yep.
like just crack me open, and then spill it into your mouth. Drink straight from the tap.
Yeah, just don't drink too hard or you get poked.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, because a lot of my ex-boyfriends have been bikers, like looking back.
Mhm.
And that's a weird thing. Like I don't know if you have like different sets, but like sometimes in comedy, like I feel like it almost makes you stereotype people more, not like in jokes, but in the audience. Because some of the times it's so true what people laugh at. Like at biker bars, I feel like I have the most like free reign to do what I want. But I noticed when the audience is mostly women,
Mhm.
for some like they don't like a lot of my like political trans stuff. They don't like that. But like dating, if I just tell dating stories, they're living for it. They're like, yes,
Mhm.
queening. And I'm like, okay, like some stereotypes are right about like what we're into as a people, like what we're gonna relate to.
Yep, and I
You
suppose if
know,
you make a lot of jokes about like your date or your man, some women eat
yeah.
that up.
Yeah, basically, and I think that's some of the like one of the difficulties of like being like any type of like different comedian, because to some extent it is a little bit easier to like get noticed.
Mhm.
But like on the other hand, there's kind of a gap because my experience like with dating or anything, I'm gonna have to do a little more work to explain it because some
Mhm.
things like will not make sense. Like a lot of people, like, when I do some of the dating material, which is a little bit darker, they're like, I can't believe someone would treat you like that. But I talk to my trans friends and they're like, yeah, I had a guy leave me at a gas station 2 days ago. So it's like,
Oh yeah,
so it's
yeah. You talked
different.
about this like the couple of days ago, where you talked about like most of your dates as a trans person, so you mostly pick up people who just want to experiment and ditch.
Yeah, basically. And it's like I think that's more insulting. Like that's kind of why like the trans community annoys me because I don't think they complain about the right things. For instance, like there was this big thing like on TikTok or the internet for a little bit where they were like it's transphobic to not be attracted to a trans person. I'm like that's not transphobic. What's transphobic is if you sleep with trans people but you're too ashamed to be seen in public with them. Because
Mhm.
that's basically I feel like it's one thing to not be attracted to something, but at that point, I feel like it's almost like you're denying the other person's humanity in a way. And I
Mhm.
think that's more offensive.
Yeah, but sort of like trying to eat the cake and not get the calories.
Yeah, yeah, basically. And much like bulimia, it involves gagging.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed about the Austin comedy scene, maybe this in comedy clubs and more in general, is like there are way way more trans jokes, and I'm wondering like does how do you deal with it, or you just roll with the punches like everyone else?
Well, trans jokes don't bother me. What bothers me about them, and I don't know if this is a me thing, because trans people get stereotyped as being so offended by
Mhm.
everything. I feel like I can't be offended by anything, or else it just falls in the trope of trans people being offended. But even
Mhm.
if I'm not offended, if I have to go or I have to leave, if someone makes a trans joke and I'm like, damn, I feel like I can't leave for at least 3 more comics to go up, because then it'll look like I was offended by a trans joke and left.
Mhm.
So it's like, then it just annoys me, because then I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I had to be at like another mic, but now I feel like I can't, leave just because someone made a trans joke. And now I'm like, I don't want people to think, I'm offended. So I'm just gonna sit here.
All right. I think I'll try the same technique when I make fun of women. See if that make them stay.
No, women will just like get up and leave. Like
Mhm.
that's the thing. Like I think trans women are better women. And
Mhm.
and I mean that in like the sense of like, I feel like sometimes we're better in that people are honest with us.
Mhm.
Because like if you see a pretty woman, sometimes I talk to them and I'm just like, you have actually had no one in your life genuinely tell you you're stupid when you're being stupid. Because I noticed when I was like really thin, like before I got sober, when I was like really thin and I looked very conventionally attractive, I had my makeup done all the time, I was going out like, to the nines. I
Mhm.
noticed like I said so many stupid things and people just let me like get away with it. Like one time I put a blonde wig on and for some reason people thought I got smarter. And I was like, no, I didn't get smarter. You just think I'm prettier at the moment.
Yep. Just trying to just trying to get you to like it because you appeared more attractive.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, trans people get judged by their appearance, so much more harshly than other people. Like, because, like a woman can leave the house and look like shit, and no one's really gonna say anything. If a trans person leaves the house and looks like shit, it could result in a hate crime. Like, it's because like it's a thing. Like I did this at a comedy show. It was not I ditched it for my set because it never worked. But like because a lot of times I would do shows in Cleveland and someone would shout when I would walk on stage, they'd be like, "That's a dude," and I would just grab the microphone. I'd be like. And it probably came off racist because it was mostly black rooms I was doing when I was in Cleveland. And
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, could you imagine if I just started pointing out who I think doesn't have a father?
Hmm.
And like they would all shut up. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm just like, why do you need to point that out? Like, because like, it doesn't affect anyone. Like, especially like
Mhm.
sometimes, like when people hit on me in public, someone will warn them. It's like, hey, do you know she's a dude?
Oh, you get cock blocked by somebody's friend?
Yeah, and it's like a lot of times it's like I came here with this guy. He clearly knew what he was signing up for.
Mhm.
But like I don't do that. Like I'm not just going up to Mexicans on dates and being like, "Hey, do you know he has 16 other kids with 5 other women?" Like I don't do that based on my own assumptions of what I think. And I'm allowed to say it because I'm Puerto Rican. I have like gosh, they don't talk to me anymore, but I grew up with my cousins. And I think that's where my like humor comes from because my birth name is Jaggard. I grew
Jaggered?
up Yeah, I grew up with my 8 boy cousins and 2 girl cousins and just huge family living in Cleveland, Ohio. And like instead of calling me Jaggard, they called me Faggard.
Yeah.
To the point that they made bubble letters
Mhm.
and put it on my door when I was a kid.
Wow.
Oh, shit.
Right, which is weird though because I feel like that is the gayest way to do homophobia. Go to a craft store,
Yeah.
get some wooden bubble letters, paint them, put a star on it like a girl writing her crush's name in a notebook, and then put it on my door. Like you had to get pretty gay to be that homophobic.
That's a great sentence.
But I think that's where my sense of humor, because I mean, it's like at a certain point, I think that's why my comedy's darker, because like
Mhm.
a lot of the stuff in my life, like I have kind of had like a somewhat like traumatic life.
Mhm.
And if I didn't laugh about it, what would I be doing?
Right.
Like for real, because at a certain point, like, and that's where I think like sometimes like the line is with like dark comedy, because I do like have like some like pretty brutal jokes, like sexual assault jokes, different things like that.
Mhm.
But it's like I feel like there's this thing on like the societal thing that we put on like victims. It's like society as a whole likes the perfect victim. You're supposed to have this bad thing happen to you, and then you're supposed to rise above it. You're supposed to be the bigger person. And I'm a single woman in my 20s. I never want to be a bigger person. And you know, but
That's
I I just it's this thing. It's like sometimes, when trauma happens, people deal with it in different ways. You're not always going to come out the other side of it being a more caring, more genuine, open-hearted person. And I think, sometimes you are going to have some rougher edges when you come out of it, and that's okay. But I feel like, especially, women who go through like traumas and different things like that, there's this thing of you're supposed to be more caring, more sympathetic, and it boils down to, and I'm not the biggest feminist, I hate that I'm saying this, but it boils down to sexism because, trans or what, if you're like female presenting, the societal standards, you're supposed to be more caring and nurturing. So when you experience these things that the world throws at you, you're supposed to become more caring out the other side. But if you come a little bit like, harsher afterwards, maybe a little bit more cynical, for some reason, at that point, your trauma's like diminished because you're not the right victim now, if that makes sense.
Yep. And I think it also boils down to like the comedy principle of people talking about like punching down. And I sort of like to use that phrase as sort of like a comedy law of nature instead of like a comedy commandment.
Yeah, like things. I think things work better if you're like punching up because sometimes punching down. But I think it depends what group you're punching down at.
Because there's been some people who sort of like had the label of victim, but they were in a position of power. Like when I see like a comic who's like a booker, who's like a special minority group, and then like a guy who's like classified as like the oppressor, but he's sort of like in the outskirts. It's just sort of like the awkward guy versus like the in crowd, like with everything else.
Yeah, and I think with like, punching down, I think there's this thing of, I just wish as a society we're all offended when it's our group that is being made fun of. Because like, trans people take the heat, I think, the most for being really sensitive about trans jokes. But like, I've, seen rooms like where other groups get offended. If you're in a Republican room and you say something about Trump, they get offended. So I've been in rooms where I watched like the whole room turn because a white comic made like a black people not being on time joke. It wasn't a good joke that he made. Like it wasn't funny, and it was kind of like there was no like intelligence or like thing to it. And this was back in Cleveland, but the whole room energy shifted. But then also everyone made like trans jokes that night. And I'm like, let's just all admit we're kind of butthurt when it is our group. And that's just human nature. And let's get past it. Not every joke is going to be for everybody.
Yep. Like for instance, lately I've been hearing like a whole bunch of autism jokes in Austin and in general. And I like one other thing like when I do, I see people come up to me and it's like, wow, this guy really does have autism.
Yeah. Yeah, like I feel like that's kind of like the standard, like I don't want to say like other states call Austin like because I travel for my day job and I do sales, so I get to hit mics in a lot of different states, but they call Austin like a lot of incel comedy. Where it's like
everyone's just following Joe Rogan.
Yeah, kind of like it's kind of characterized as being like very like single white guy comedy. Like that's kind of the look at in the other states. And I think a lot of them, do make autism jokes. I think, and I don't know. I don't know, like certain ones I'm just like I think Love on the Spectrum too. A lot of people are talking about that show.
And also like speaking of like the way the people like throw like the insult, that one thing I've noticed is like a lot of people who do that tend to be like very nerdy, and they tend to like throw it at guys who try to present themselves as more masculine. So I think it might be as like a defense mechanism, trying like to shoot down competition.
Yeah, like I fully admit I'm an incel.
Yeah.
I am like it's weird. Like I feel like I can relate to the incel community because I could have sex 5 times a day if I wanted to, but like relationships with me, it's like for some reason I can't get those because everyone kind of views like the trans thing as very fetishy, so like So it's like I feel like I kind of relate to the incel thing. Like I walked to get food this morning. And I was sitting there and I was writing, and I was just sitting there and I was all these happy couples having like their breakfast in the morning.
Hmm.
And for a second, I it took everything in me not to make a 4chan account.
Hmm. Yeah, and plus, like, I think maybe there's like a different word for like emotional incel, like M-cell, or.
Oh my gosh.
But I think like the way with what way the world we grew up in, like everyone just talks about like relationships being like something that just happens, but then with the way like the social media and the internet sort of like put like a wrecking ball to like the courting ritual, like yeah, now everyone's just most of their experience with the opposite sex is behind a screen now.
Yeah, like honestly, like if my dad had 4 goats, I think that would be a better deal.
Hmm.
Like, but no, me and my friend talk about this all the time, and this is kind of anti-feminist. I partly feel as a woman, it was a better deal in the 50s. Because here's the thing, like in the 50s, women, took care of the house. Yes, you could
Hmm.
talk about like the discrimination stuff, but like you took care of the house. You didn't have to get a job.
Yep.
Now in the dating market, you're expected to spend money on your appearance. And I could tell you as a woman that that gets expensive when you're thinking about the products you need to have nice hair, the products you need, because all of marketing towards women is really based on them hating themselves.
Hmm.
It's like, makeup, do this, do that. So you're supposed to do all that. You're supposed to look good. Also, you have to be, physically appealing, so you have to be in really good shape. Also, now you have to work a full-time job, and also the guy still expects, you to have sex quite often.
Hmm.
So it's like, so I'm doing all this stuff like, well, if I'm not the biggest fan of sex, what are you bringing to the table now? Because in
Hmm.
a lot of dating, I feel like, it's weird because if you say it's a financial transaction, you're considered a horrible person.
Hmm.
But if the person is considering it like, oh, you're giving me sex for, affection, you're trading the sex for the affection, that's
Hmm.
okay. But if you talk money, that's when you're a horrible person. And again, that's why I just wish, people would not be as fake nice. Like, just say we're both using each other. If
Hmm.
you pay me, it's more honest.
Yeah, it's everyone's just sort of like putting on like the public persona and like the private intentions, and it's an awkward dance we all have to navigate.
It's like this guy today, like I hate, like I don't know if like y'all, since you I don't know if y'all are in relationships or if you're on the apps. There's this thing that me and my friend get asked all the time. Do you want a massage? Like we have like a rule 34 of the internet with like
Hmm.
Tinder. Like basically within the first 10 message, a massage will be brought up. Whether he wants to give you a massage, he wants a massage, he just worked out, he needs a massage, he's had a stressful day at work, you need a massage. And I'm just like, so I know what you're doing. You don't want to seem predatory, but you're trying to gain access to someone's body and you're saying
Hmm.
it in a cutesy way. And that could be trauma that I just paint it in a negative light. But like, I'm just like, you don't even know what I do for work. And now you're asking about a massage.
Hmm. And it's sort of like just trying to figure out like, well, also like with electronic communication, people in the back mind saying like, yeah, this could be public, so let's try to speak in code.
Yeah, basically, the massage. We call them sex mongers.
Hmm. And I also
And
want
it's
to go back to the point you're talking about, like feminists being women being having it better in like the 50s.
yeah,
Like I
oh
think,
yeah.
well, I think it's sort of like a position of like envy. Like everyone wants what they don't have. Like they sort of look at the people at work and they sort of look at their pizzazz, like the money they're breaking in, but they don't look at the other end of it, like the long hours and the grueling nature of work. Same way, like
Yeah.
some people look at millionaires thinking like, oh, this guy must have like a top tier life, but they're working like nonstop, and if they make like one small mistake, it couldn't mean like hundreds of people getting laid off or company getting fucked over.
Yeah, like I work in the corporate world and I could tell you like the grass is not greener. Like I thought the corporate world was going to be for me. But like one morning I literally got 15 phone calls 36 emails and had to get on a plane and fly to another state over an event, someone missing an event email. And I was like, this is just ridiculous. Like at this point, like, I think, like, like it's some, like, I feel, I feel like, I feel like all of society is like
Mm-hmm.
a circle, because I feel like if you go far enough right or far enough left, you're at the same position, but for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if you think about like the Israel Palestine thing, go far enough left, far enough right, you kind of think the same thing. It's just for vastly different reasons.
Just A
Even
team, B team.
yeah, basically, like, even with like, the far right and the far left, they have the same critique. Like, what we are currently doing is not working. We're living the worst of both worlds, because if you think about it, the family structure is broken down.
Mm-hmm.
Because back in the day, people used to rely on the family, and you used to rely on the church, for everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that got broken down. And
Yep. Sort of
now
like
it's,
with science, like the genie is out of the bottle. Like people are just studying like science, and sort of
yeah,
like some people just can't separate the sort of from like the structure from the mythology.
yeah, yeah, and it's like this American dream, like, both sides know it's like, getting more and more unattainable, but it's just for different reasons that they think it is. But they both know there is a problem. And that's why we don't do anything, because we divide on right left, when if we realize, hey, there's a problem that needs to be fixed, let's come together and do that. But instead, it's all this like divisive stuff. And I think Carlin said it, we live in a uniparty, and we're not in it. Or I'm
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing, but
Oh yeah,
and
there's
that's
like one
basically,
big club, and you and I ain't in it.
yeah, and that's like so true. And I feel like, at some point, um, people are going to realize that, and hopefully change some things, because
Mm-hmm.
where we're on as a country, I think, is not working.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where things go. And either way, like my job, comedian job, is like deal with bullshit. So
Yeah, a lot of it. Like, I mean, the 2024 debate, I really hope Trump and Biden debate, because it's just going to be a stand-up special.
mm-hmm.
Like, Trump is going to put the mic stand behind him, and he's just going to start making jokes about Joe Biden's age during the debate.
Yeah, and I think both our campaigns can like be like election 2024. I'm sure this time it'll be different.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is like the abusive relationship now. It's like, the couple we didn't want together, they just got back together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you're just like, he's gonna, sleep around again, and then the other guy's gonna cheat.
Mhm. If you were talking earlier about your experience in with your corporate job, I'm wondering like being a trans woman, like what's your experience like in the corporate realm? Like I know like that realm is like super professional and sort of up, like I'm trying to think of like the word like stick up their ass.
Yeah, so it's because I work in construction sales, so they're woke, but they fail at it.
Oh, okay.
For instance, again, some homosexuality used to combat, homophobia. My last job, they posted for Gay Pride Month a newsletter, and in it they had on the cover words not to use. Don't call each other faggots, and they didn't star it. They It was just in the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a picture of all the gay employees on the next page. And I felt like, with the looking of that, I was like, do you want us to call them that? Because I feel like at this point, you just gave us a hit list.
Yeah. That's like
Eh,
some sneaky fuckery.
Yeah, but that's like construction sales. It's like when I first like was getting promoted, I walked into the office, and they had a sign, and it said, "This bathroom is for people without dicks," and it was posted on the women's room.
Wow.
Right? And that's Ohio though.
Hmm.
So I went in the men's and sucked people off. No. But yeah, it's I mean, corporate world is the corporate world, I think.
Hmm. Yep. And oh yeah, there's this other thing I want to talk about. I've heard you talk about in your stand up. You talk
Yeah.
about some of the times you accidentally dated a Nazi.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Multiple times. Like you would not think that happens to people more than you wouldn't think that happens once. Like it's happened multiple times, but like I got sober though, so I used to like meet all my boyfriends at an AA meeting because
Oh,
I thought it was easier to date at AA meetings because if you're at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, they really don't care what they're putting in their body or mouth.
I think maybe you went to the wrong AA. Maybe you went to like the Aryan Association.
I I probably did. But no, it's like because in Ohio, like a lot of the guys I met at AA meetings had been to prison.
Hmm.
And I don't know if like a lot because all my ex-boyfriends have been to prison. And I don't know if it's just because like they have lower standards or I remind them of their old cellmate.
Hmm.
But I've always dated guys who've been to prison. And
Hmm.
in Ohio, unfortunately, that means, a lot of Nazis, and it's always a surprise because like,
Hmm.
some
That's
of
something you
them,
lead with.
well, yeah, and normally like it's not till the bedroom
Hmm.
that you notice the swastika. And when you look at those abs, though, you're like, well, I've already come this far. It's kind of like the inverse of a guy who gets tricked by a tranny and likes it
Hmm.
because it's like the guy will just be doing his thing and then figures out that there's an extra penis involved. And then they're like, oh, well, I'm
Hmm.
already hard. I might as well finish. And that's just kind of how all my relationships have been.
Feels like it has like a mutual agreement. Like you're in the bedroom, like you have your secret, he has his secret. We'll keep it together.
Right? Like, and trans people aren't the only people that trick people because I've had a guy, you know, tell me he's 10 inches and he was 4. So I don't think it's bad if he thinks I have to do anal because I'm on my period.
Hmm. And yeah, and that is like the tricky thing about dating is like people. Well, like I think like the problem with online dating is you like have two options. You can either be rejected as an honest person or get laid as a liar.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I have to tone down my personality a lot, but I think I'm just more permissible with trash because
Hmm.
like the one like the biggest Nazi, like the one I have the joke that he had Nazi imagery on his member. Um, that guy, he introduced himself to me. He said he was the Casanova of the street. That is like the worst pickup line ever. He's like, I'm the Casanova of the street. And then I got in his truck and I got punctured by a needle.
Ooh.
And I still was like, this is fine.
Mm.
I think it's a self-esteem thing though, because for a while, like being trans in Ohio, I was not getting like much support.
Hmm.
It was not the affirming time when I transitioned. It was like, hey, you're gonna get treated how you're gonna get treated. And a lot of times with that, I think I was just accepting whoever would be around me because I almost felt like a leper in a way. Like I felt like I was this diseased person that like
Yep.
so I was just, if they were willing to be around with me, I would run with them and I would look past their flaws because at the time I thought like being trans was a bigger flaw than all of their flaws.
Hmm.
Now I don't think it, I know it.
Yeah, he talks about becoming like officially trans in 2013.
Yes.
Yep. And have you noticed like a major difference between like being trans back then and being trans now?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I can't compete with like the dating.
Hmm.
Like this personality is not what happens when people transitioned post 2020.
Oh yeah, if you were looking for like a trans person back in 2013, you'd be the only option, and now you got younger competitors now.
I know, supply and demand. That's why I don't get why like people are like, oh, trans women want to create more trans people and we want to groom the kids to be trans. Have you ever talked to an older woman and said, I wish there was a more attractive, younger version of me walking around competing for the same men? Like, no older woman has ever said that. So I don't get it. But it's different because like they want you to kind of be like, the younger ones, they're more okay with stuff because they didn't live through like the dehumanizing period of it where it was like really you were considered subhuman. I did. So a lot of the newer ones, they don't come with the same baggage that, us elderly grizzled ones do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also like there's the wave of like support and also like show support, which is sort of like a deception because some people still have like those hangups, but they're not willing to be open about it.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, liberals that I've been on dates with have been more problematic than the conservatives I've been on dates with. Because the
Um,
liberals I've been on a date with, it's like that South Park episode where they're like sucking their own farts.
mm-hmm.
Like they were just bragging that they are so woke that they are on a date with a trans person the entire time. And I'm like, could you imagine if you went on a date with a fat chick and the entire date you were just sucking yourself off about how good of a person you are dating a fatso? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like guys like will say things to trans people that they would never say to a woman. Like, I've like gone on dates with guys and I've just had flat out like them immediately critique my appearance. I'm just like, it's a bone structure. Like that costs money to change.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not out here like telling them to like, well, I am, but telling them to change things about themselves, but that's
Mm-hmm.
neither here nor there.
Yeah. Are you going on any? Have you gone on any like other through any hormone procedures or like?
I've spent so much money on this. So clearly I'm going to the wrong people because I've spent so much money like laser hair removal, hormones, the boob job. I want to get my face done, but that's another 13 grand.
Wow.
And that's why I don't get like the trans kids today, and I have my glasses on, so I feel extra old now. But like the trans kids today, like back in my day, we called it a mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer it as a mental illness because here's the thing. Is your insurance going to cover a new fashion trend or is it going to cover a mental illness? Like
Wow.
back when we were saying it was a mental illness, people were like, "Yeah, your insurance should cover it." Do you hear anyone talking about your insurance being able to cover it now? No, unless you're in like California, your insurance isn't really covering that much. Especially like the face or laser hair removal. So it's like back because the mental thing, people could understand that.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're born in the wrong body and there is a biological component to that. But nowadays, I feel like it's treated as a fashion trend,
Right.
and it's like, and people are like, why are people less sympathetic towards it? That's why, because at this point, it's just like a style like goth or emo. It's not, legitimately, people who like, suffer with gender dysphoria. And it's not something that I would wish on like my worst enemy because it's a terrible feeling.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that is a new point that I didn't hear much talk about. Like, yeah, sort of like, hold on, I need a cup of water. I'm still very tired from last night.
Oh, I am too. I'm a soda pop. It's a Diet Coke because I'm on a diet.
Yep. So how do
I
you
feel
enjoy?
like
How do you enjoy the comedy scene in Austin?
I'm too old. I know I mean that because like here's the thing about like Austin, it's all about the hang. Like I'm probably the same age as a lot of those people,
Mhm.
but I feel like I'm in a very different point in my life. It's like I have like a corporate job. So I kind of miss Ohio because I feel like to really be ingratiated into the scene um
You got to
in
be a little wreck.
Ohio. Yeah, I didn't have to be out till 2 a.m. every night. I did like here I feel like it's about the hang a little bit and you know, um, if you have a regular job, it is like difficult to be out till like 2 a.m. at all these mics
Mhm.
downtown. Like I liked a little bit like Ohio because I could hit a mic, I could get a 10-minute spot at it. Most of the mics, because there aren't many comics, are like 5, 10 minutes, and I could work out all my new jokes. There was parking at the bar, and go about my day. Now it's an all-day adventure downtown. So you kind of have to structure your day. And like sometimes I'll do it because I'm committed to comedy. But like some days it's just like I have to plan my whole day around this. As opposed to I could go in, get my gym rep in, and then, go about my day.
Yep, and I think in Austin you can probably people can sort of make it as like comedy as their full-time job because there's like 5 clubs in like the 6th Street area.
Yeah.
I heard like people who get spots at the Mothership, they get paid regularly.
I know that's my goal. That would be like the dream. Because also, I made a Mean Girls burn book. Not of Austin comedy, so I'm not gonna get in trouble, but like of my coworkers.
Mhm.
And because okay, this is my stress hobby. It's not healthy, but I Photoshop people's heads on things.
Wow.
I find
That's awesome.
pictures of them on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I Photoshop heads on things, and I write comments. So if I ever get hired at the Mothership, when I quit my job, I am just sending that out, and I'm just gonna be like, I'm just gonna be like, hey guys, you made me get on a plane 5 times in 1 month because you're bad at hiring, and this is what you get. This is for the midnight phone call I had to answer.
This sounds like the sort of like the therapy thing where you write the letters but you don't send them.
Yeah, basically, but it's worse. Like so I was at the airport the other day and I was so upset that I had to spend a week like training people in Denver because really they should have an office manager doing that just because one, when you hire people, especially in this kind of job market, you're not 100% sure they're going to show up. So I
Yeah.
sat there for an entire week. Only one person in the training class showed up. So I was mad. And then I was getting hit about one of my other offices. So I photoshopped like the one person with his head on a guy sexually harassing a woman. And then I put one of my male coworkers' heads on the woman's body so it looked like he was in drag. And then I wrote a bunch of comments underneath.
It sound. I was expecting to hear like a more graphic description, like maybe you putting like a guy's head on a horse's ass.
No, I do have some BDSM ones. It's weird. Like I said, like every time I've talked to people, they're always like, I choose weird times to censor myself because I will like talk about like assault, and everything. I'll use like the actual terms and like get very graphic with it. And then I'm just like, yeah, I Photoshop these harmless pictures that I don't send to other people, and I'm like censoring, like, no, I did this, but But yeah, some of them, a lot of BDSM things. My friend's boyfriend, her baby dad did not see either of her children being born because he's kind of a deadbeat. And so yeah, she's trying for a third though. And I was like, if the first 2 times you tried to trap someone didn't work, why are you going for a third? Like if you're setting traps, people only cared about the first 2 Home Alone movies. And, I put his head in a threesome on like a trans woman's body. And this trans woman was so surgically altered. So her boobs were the size of a love seat. You know what? I just put his head while he's getting like raw dog this guy and I sent it to all my friends.
Yeah, that sounds like something that's very healthy to do.
It's way healthier than a lot of other things.
Yeah, my therapist was like, "Oh, did you make any more photos?" Which I think is a weird thing. I don't know. My therapist has a field day with me. I have 2, like, oh, this is I feel like certain mental disorders, I feel like there's a slight crossover with autism. So I don't know if you can like relate to this, but with certain mental disorders, you have like hyper arousal. So like if you're in a room where there's like a lot of, or at least when I'm in a room and there's a lot of sound,
Yeah.
I can't pick out the different sounds from each other. So it just becomes like a very loud murmur, and it's not as loud to other people as it is. But in my head, it's like the loudest thing. And, I can't really focus on what's going on, because it's almost like it's almost like if you're in a video editing, someone turns the background noise all the way up and everything else is muted. And
Yep.
it's kind of a symptom of like because I have DPDR, which is depersonalization derealization disorder. So it's like I have chronic disassociation. So like I get that all the time, and sometimes like I have to make those photos just to be able to like focus, because if I can focus on one thing, I can kind of wait it out and it goes back to normal eventually.
I'm glad you sort of brought that thing up, because like with me, like my biggest challenge is like it's like when I'm stuck in between like four a group like of four people, and like they're having conversations at the same time, like I'm just shooting back and forth, getting wires crossed. It's sort of like why I don't go out clubbing or going to like major bars with lots of people, because I automatically just listen on to whatever conversation that's going on automatically.
Yeah, and it's difficult, but I do that. But my therapist like gave up on me. Like at one point, like I was talking about an assault in therapy. I was talking about an assault in therapy, and she asked, "What was his zodiac sign?"
What?
I know. I'm just like my insurance is paying this lady, and
Yeah,
then she
sounds
spent
like
the
you're on the
rest of the
discount plan.
yeah, and she spent the rest of the session doing a star chart to figure out why this happened. See, this is the problem with white women in the workforce, man. Like,
No, he he is a cancer, not a cancer.
right? Like, it's like you get cheated on, and it's just like, well, I mean, what did you expect? He was a Gemini. No, but
Yeah,
I think I have like a thing like you know how solar bros are like very popular now, or
solar
like
blowers. I've never heard of
so
that term. What is
solar
it?
bros are like finance bros. It's like kind of like the hyper masculine. Like you see always like the guy in front of the nice car and he's got the hot women. It's kind of like the legal version of what Andrew Tate does. I work in sales, so I'm around a lot of guys like that. And I'm
So
just thinking
so
that's
like
just
they're like tech bros with more solar panels.
yeah, like solar canvassing, door to door, different things like that, like make your own destiny, type deal, like, trying to be the guy from American Psycho. But in actuality, I've come to realize like that is just the straight white guy's version of selling Herbalife and girl bossing and
Mhm.
LuLaRoe. And I think that stuff is just alienation from the late stage capitalistic economy we're in.
Yeah, sort of like everyone's just sort of like masking their insecurities.
Well, it's because no one has a place anymore. Like we don't have roles, like and and I'm trying to write a bit about it. I'm kicking it around, but like it's like I think a lot of the stuff, like the problems in society stems from no one has a role anymore. Like men used to be the provider, women used to be the homemaker. We got rid of those and we got more loose with it. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, but now no one has a role. Like nothing replaced that. Like in this economy, a man can't support really someone on one income.
Mhm.
Most people can barely support themselves on one income, without having to do gig work, side jobs, different things like that to make
Yep.
extra cash. Everything's so expensive now. So no one has these defined roles anymore. So we're just walking in this nihilistic, existential dread of life being meaningless. And that's
And
why you
with
see the rise of things like communism, and why you see the things of rise like fascism, because people just have nothing to glob onto. Like that's why I feel like we're so lucky we have comedy, because
yeah,
we have this thing that we can glob onto that gives us a
yeah.
purpose. But so many people do not have like, that thing that makes life meaningful, and that's purpose or a
Mhm.
role. And I think that's why you see like the increase in drug abuse, the increase in crime, and different things like that. It's just a symptom of the disease that we have as a society.
It's just
I do a
like,
lot of sex jokes, but I'm also very like philosophical. It's like weird, like because sometimes people talk to me and they're like, "You talk about like bad sexual experiences a lot," and then they like talk to me off stage, and I'm just going on a rant about the birth rate in America.
yep. And there's also the paradox of choice where anybody can be everything. He won't choose on anything.
Yeah, basically, like I mean, it's kind of a little bit easy. It's kind of a little bit easier if people just told you what to do. Like that sounds I sound like an NPC right now, but like it's like wouldn't it be better if Big Brother just told you what job you were gonna do and what life you would have, take all the choice out of it, you know?
Just go back to school and just focus on that one simple task instead of like, I think this is sort of like also like the price of freedom. Like you can be anything, but you also have to bear like the responsibility of to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean in the Bible, it said man's downfall was when he was given choice.
Mhm. And it sort of like makes me think of like comedy. Like most people go into comedy thinking it's going to be like an escape from like responsibility or hard work. And then you start setting up your own showcases and you're like, God damn, this is more work than my bullshit corporate job.
Yeah, and I think like life is struggle.
Hmm.
You know, not not specifically my struggle, but like it's a struggle in itself. And I feel like what society is lacking is a reason to struggle. And I think
Yep.
that's what, because like in Alcoholics Anonymous they tell you, like what's the opposite of addiction? It's not sobriety, it's connection, because people like choose to connect with the drugs and things like that because they're not able to connect with
Hmm.
other things in their life. And that connection or passion or purpose or higher
Hmm.
purpose is kind of, really, if you go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't subscribe to them. I think that, they're deeply problematic. But like if you go through them, it's like you're supposed to find a purpose. Now, the purpose AA wants you to find is helping others, which is a noble purpose. But I mean, when people say, giving to others comes back to you tenfold, I feel like the only people that's true for is loan sharks. And like, it's this thing of like, I feel like a lot of people don't have purpose, and it's creating all these greater issues for
Hmm.
us.
Yep. And I also read this really good book. It's called The Comfort Crisis. And it basically the gist of the book was saying like our bodies are sort of like built for like the harsh nature reality, and like technology and our environment change so rapidly, like our bodies and minds can adapt with it. So we're sort of like a wild cat in like a modern day apartment.
Yeah, yeah, basically, like, and I think there's some truth with that because I'm kind of into the fasting thing.
Mhm.
I know with some other things I've said about food, it may or may not seem like I might have disordered eating. Like when I tell people I fast, they're like, "Ah, yeah, that's what you're calling it these days." But no, it's there's this thing. I was watching this video. This lady said like our bodies were meant to like feast and famine, kind of. Like
Mhm.
we would get food, then we wouldn't know when we were going to get food next.
Yep,
So
like
we
sugar
would.
and salt are like they're good for storage, but back then they were like in such short supply, so we developed like a sweet attracting them. But now we live in an age where like they pump that stuff and like everything, and advertisers, if you really want to know understand like human psychology, read advertising because they have their because their job, they have money on the line, like to understand like the human connection condition.
Yeah, and it's like for instance, like what like I sell home improvements. We're not talking about home improvements. We're talking about the time you're spending with your family, the middle class lifestyle, that purpose, and we're tying it in to that to
and the
sell the home improvements.
and also the feeling of safety.
Yeah,
Mhm.
safety, security, that American dream, that lifestyle, that's what we're selling people on. We're not selling people on the product.
Mhm. All right. Well, I think we're almost at the end hour. You gonna go hit the mics tonight?
I am. I'm gonna hit as many mics as I can. I'm gonna hopefully try out some new jokes. And hopefully, move up in this world so I can get a nose job.
Let's see. I'm gonna look through my bullet points. I think we went through so much of the stuff I wanted to talk about. Let's see. Is there any advice you want to give to like any fellow trans comics in this scenes and beyond? Like how to handle like comedy and life in general?
If you're in your early 20s, porn pays more.
All right. And I think that's the uplifting note we'll end this interview on. Thank you, Alexa.
Thank you.